They say every love story begins with a promise. But this one began with a funeral. They say tragedy doesn't knock. It breaks down the door. For Ava Monroe, that night, it tore her world apart. It was supposed to be ordinary. A Wednesday. Rainy, quiet, forgettable. She'd cooked dinner, kissed her husband goodbye before he left for his late shift at the firm, and promised she'd wait up. She never saw him again. At 2:37 a.m., the phone rang. That sound, that single shrill ring, would echo in her head for years. A calm voice on the other end said the words that would split her life in two. "There's been an accident, Mrs. Monroe. You should come immediately." Accident. They said it like a bump in the road, like something you could fix. But when Ava arrived, her husband, Mark Monroe, was already gone. A car crash, they said. Wrong lane. High speed. Instant. No time to suffer. The doctors called it mercy. Ava called it murder, because nothing about Mark's death made sense. He was careful, a perfectionist, the kind of man who double-checked every lock, every seatbelt, every detail. He didn't drink. He didn't drive fast. And yet, his car had gone off a bridge at 90 miles an hour. The police found no skid marks, no signs of braking, just a file in his glove compartment, one Ava never knew existed. A file labeled EP Holdings. She didn't understand it at first. But that night, while sitting alone on the cold bathroom floor, surrounded by Mark's things, she remembered a name he had once mentioned, Ethan Pierce, a billionaire investor, charming, untouchable, and her husband's boss. Mark used to call him the man who owns everything. Now, Ava wondered if that included her husband's silence. The funeral was elegant, expensive, courtesy of the Pierce Foundation. Black umbrellas, polished cars, the kind of grief that comes with press coverage. Ethan himself stood beside her, in his tailored suit and practiced sympathy. He spoke softly, like a man who knew how to handle broken people. "I'm truly sorry, Ava," he said, his hand brushing hers. Mark was irreplaceable. She nodded, but when she looked into his gray-blue eyes, she didn't see sorrow. She saw control, and something colder, calculation. That night, when everyone left, Ava sat by the fire, holding Mark's watch in her palm. It still smelled like him, faint cologne and engine oil. She pressed it against her chest and whispered, "If this was an accident, why does it feel like a warning?" Days turned into weeks, weeks into silence. The world moved on, but Ava didn't. She kept digging, quietly, methodically. She found traces of strange transactions in their joint account, large withdrawals, offshore transfers. She found emails Mark never showed her, encrypted, urgent, and always tied to EP Holdings. And one final draft never sent, sitting in his outbox. Subject: "If anything happens to me." The message was empty. No text. Just an attachment, locked with a password she couldn't crack. That was the moment Ava Monroe stopped being a widow and became something else. Grief sharpened into purpose. Tears turned to fuel. Every sleepless night became a clue. Every memory a motive. She learned to play the part. The grieving wife who needed closure. She attended charity galas hosted by Ethan Pierce, smiled through champagne conversations, and studied the man behind the empire. He was flawless in public, generous, composed, always just out of reach. But Ava saw the cracks. The private calls he took in corners. The way his jaw tightened at the mention of her husband's name. The fear he hid behind charm. Ethan Pierce wasn't just powerful. He was dangerous. And the deeper Ava dug, the more she found the same initials appearing in documents, invoices, shell companies, all under EP Holdings. All tied to a series of accidents involving employees who knew too much. Mark hadn't been the first, but he would be the last. One night, sitting in front of her laptop, Ava finally whispered what had been haunting her since the funeral. This wasn't fate. This was engineered. She started building her new life with precision. She sold her home, changed her look, moved to the city under a different name, took a job at a financial firm, one of Ethan's subsidiaries. No one questioned the quiet woman with the new resume and the steady eyes. Every day she got closer, to his office, to his secrets, to the truth. And every night, she looked at Mark's photo on her dresser and whispered, "I'm coming for him, for you." People said time heals, but Ava had no interest in healing. She wanted justice, the kind that doesn't wait for courtrooms or apologies, and she was willing to burn everything to get it. As the city lights flickered outside her window, she put on her necklace, the one Mark gave her, and smiled for the first time in months. Because for the first time since the crash, she had a plan. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. They say revenge requires patience. But for Ava Monroe, patience wasn't peace. It was preparation. 3 months after her husband's death, she became someone new. Her hair shorter, darker. Her voice softer, more cautious. Her name, Claire Dawson. Widowhood was buried. In its place stood purpose with lipstick and calm eyes. She moved to New York City, the empire of ambition, where no one asks where you came from, only what you can offer. And she offered competence, quiet brilliance, numbers that made sense when no one else could make them work. Within weeks, Claire, or rather, Ava, was hired as an analyst at Pierce Global, one of the many companies under EP Holdings. Ethan Pierce's kingdom, the man she blamed for destroying hers. Every day she played her part perfectly. She wore beige tones and careful smiles. She spoke just enough to seem human, but never enough to be remembered. Invisible until she needed not to be. From her cubicle, she watched Ethan from a distance. He wasn't just powerful, he was magnetic. He carried himself like a man who'd never known fear. Confident, articulate, always one sentence ahead of the world. But Ava saw through it. She watched the moments no one else noticed. The twitch in his jaw when certain names were mentioned. The way he avoided looking at the plaque on his office wall that bore her husband's name among honored contributors. That plaque wasn't tribute. It was mockery. By the 3rd week, she'd mapped out the company's data infrastructure. A digital empire of hidden accounts and offshore files. Most people would call it accounting. She called it a trail of blood. One evening, after everyone left, Ava stayed behind. The hum of the city echoed through the office windows. She slid her flash drive into her computer, hand steady, breath shallow. A few keystrokes and she was in. Hidden folders, restricted access, and there it was, Project Orion. The file was encrypted, but she copied it anyway. Then she froze. Working late. The voice was smooth, familiar. Ethan Pierce. He stood by the doorway, suit jacket off, tie loosened, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. She turned, heart pounding but face calm. I was just finishing some numbers for the quarterly report, she said. He smiled, that same charming smile that once fooled her husband. Dedicated. I like that. Most people would have bolted the moment the clock hit 6. He stepped closer, handing her a glass. Relax, Claire. You'll burn out before you shine. She forced a polite smile and took the glass, her fingers barely touching his. Every instinct screamed to run, but she met his gaze. Cold gray-blue eyes that once watched her husband die, even if she couldn't prove it. I'll keep that in mind, she said softly. He studied her for a moment longer, then looked away. You remind me of someone, he said. She tilted her head, feigning curiosity. Anyone I'd know? He smirked faintly. No. She's long gone. She smiled back, but her stomach turned. Long gone. That's what he thought. When he finally left, she exhaled, the kind of breath that felt like survival. Then she looked at the whiskey he left behind and whispered, "You should have killed me too." That night, back in her apartment, she decrypted part of the file. Project Orion wasn't just business. It was a cover, a pipeline moving dirty money through shell corporations disguised as charities. And one of those charities was the same foundation that funded her husband's final research project. Mark's death wasn't collateral damage. It was cleanup. Ava's hands trembled, but not from fear, from fury. The next morning, she walked into the office wearing red, the first color she'd worn since the funeral. Ethan noticed. Everyone did. The invisible woman had stepped into the light. From that day, she became his favorite. He called her into meetings, asked her opinion, praised her insight in front of executives. Every compliment was a weapon she didn't have to draw. At night, she gathered information. During the day, she charmed him with precision. She learned what he liked, his routines, his tells, his weakness for admiration. Every move was calculated. Every smile rehearsed. Every glance, a distraction. But something unexpected began to happen. Something Ava hadn't prepared for. She started to understand him. Not forgive. Not pity. Understand. Ethan wasn't just a monster. He was a man built from his own ghosts, a product of survival dressed in success. He spoke of betrayal like it was weather, inevitable and cruel. And in his stories, Ava sometimes heard a reflection of her own pain. That scared her more than anything, because empathy is dangerous when you're planning revenge. One night, after a company gala, Ethan offered her a ride home. Rain streaked across the car windows. The city lights blurred into gold and gray. He spoke quietly, almost humanly. "You know, Claire, most people come to me wanting something. Power, money, influence. But you, I can't read you." Ava looked out the window, hiding the storm in her eyes. "Maybe I just want to matter," she said. He nodded slowly. "We all do. The difference is, some of us are willing to do whatever it takes." Her reflection in the glass met his, and for a moment, she wondered if he'd somehow recognized her. Not her face, but her rage. When she got home, she stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the grieving widow anymore. She was the hunter, and she was dangerously close to her prey. Before she went to bed, she wrote in her journal, the same one Mark had given her years ago. "He doesn't see me coming, but I see him clearly now. Mercy is just another mask, and I'm done pretending." Outside, the rain began again, and for the first time since Mark's death, Ava smiled. Not because she was healing, but because she was winning. There's a thin line between control and collapse. Ava Monroe walked that line every day. Weeks passed since she joined Ethan Pierce's inner circle. She had his trust now, his schedule, his habits, his secrets whispered between the cracks of conversation. To everyone else, she was Claire Dawson, the rising star. To herself, she was the shadow behind the glass, watching the man who took everything from her, and smiling while she did. But every shadow leaves a trace. One Monday morning, she walked into the office and froze. Her computer screen was already on. A message blinked at the center. "Someone's watching you." Her heart skipped. Then she noticed something else. Her flash drive was missing. The same one she used to copy Project Orion. Her pulse thudded. She scanned the room, calm on the outside, burning inside. Then Ethan stepped out of his office, holding that same flash drive between two fingers. "Looking for this?" Ava forced a breath. "Where did you find that?" "Conference room, after the board meeting." Thought it might be yours. He studied her, eyes steady, unreadable. You really should be more careful, Claire. He handed it back, turned, and walked away. No accusation, no smile, just silence, the kind that says, I see you. For the rest of the day, she couldn't focus. Every sound felt like a warning. Every glance from Ethan felt like a question she didn't want to answer. That night, she went home, poured herself a drink, and stared at the flash drive. He could have fired her. He could have exposed her. But he didn't, which meant he was playing too. And that scared her more than being caught. The next morning, Ethan called her into his office. Close the door, he said. She did. He didn't look up right away, just swirled the amber whiskey in his glass, even though it was barely 10 a.m. Finally, he said, You remind me of my wife. Ava blinked. I didn't know you were married. Once, he said. A long time ago. She was brilliant. Too good for me. She thought she could fix me. He looked up. She couldn't. Ava's throat tightened. What happened to her? She left, he said simply. Or maybe I drove her away. I'm still not sure. He smiled faintly, that broken, human kind of smile that didn't belong to a man like him. Anyway, you've got that same fire. Makes people believe you care, even when you don't. Ava met his gaze. Maybe I do care. About what? Truth. For a second, something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or guilt. But it was gone before she could read it. When she left his office, her hands trembled. Not from fear this time, from confusion. Because in that moment, she realized something she hadn't prepared for. Ethan Pierce might not be the man she thought he was. He might be worse. Or he might be broken in ways that mirrored her own. Still, she had a plan. That night, she met with a journalist, a contact from her husband's old network. She used a payphone, voice disguised. There's a file called Project Orion, she whispered. You'll find it under EP Holdings. It's not charity money. It's cover money. And I have proof. The journalist agreed to meet in person. But before she could leave, she received a text from an unknown number. Don't. No name. No signature. Just one word. Her stomach dropped. She looked out the window. Across the street, a black car idled. Inside, someone sat motionless, watching. The next day, the journalist was found dead. A hit and run. Police called it an accident. Ava knew better. That night, she sat in her apartment, staring at the ceiling. The city outside buzzed with life. Taxis, sirens, laughter. And yet, she'd never felt so trapped. She had wanted justice. But now it was survival. Days turned into nights, nights into calculations. She started to document everything. Every email, every transaction, every conversation. Her wall was covered with notes, strings connecting faces and files, like a spider weaving proof. And at the center of that web, Ethan Pierce. But something kept pulling her back from hate. Those rare moments when he looked tired, almost human. When his mask slipped and she saw a man haunted by choices, not proud of them. Empathy is a slow poison, and Ava was drinking it. One Friday evening, Ethan asked her to stay late again. The office was quiet, the skyline glowing behind him. He handed her a folder. You've been doing exceptional work, Claire. I'm promoting you. Ava's heart raced. Thank you, sir. He leaned closer. Don't thank me. Earn it. I like people who understand loyalty. Something about the way he said it made her skin crawl. Loyalty. The same word her husband used in his final message to her. The one she never deleted. When she got home that night, she played that message again. His voice? Soft. Fading. If anything happens to me, promise me you won't lose yourself trying to find the truth. She paused it there, because she had already broken that promise. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed again. Another text. Same number. You're not the only one with ghosts, Ava. Her blood ran cold. He knew. She dropped the phone. Then she saw her reflection in the window, her eyes hollow, her posture tense. She didn't look like a woman anymore. She looked like the thing she was hunting. The next morning, she walked into the office as if nothing had happened. She smiled when Ethan greeted her. She took her seat. But inside, she knew the truth. This wasn't a game of revenge anymore. It was survival, and the cost of silence had just gone up. There's a moment in every storm when silence feels louder than thunder. For Ava Monroe, that silence came on a Monday morning. She walked into the office like always, smile polished, eyes steady. But the air felt different, colder, heavier. Every pair of eyes followed her. Every whisper paused when she passed. And then she saw it, Ethan Pierce's office door. Open. Waiting. She knew what that meant. The kind of meeting you don't come back from. When she stepped inside, Ethan was already standing. No glass of whiskey this time. No smile. Just a folder on his desk. And a look that could slice through steel. Close the door, he said. She did. Her pulse hammered in her throat. He walked around the desk, stopped just a few inches from her, and placed the folder in her hands. Do me a favor, he said quietly. Read it. Inside were photographs of her husband, of his accident, of her standing at the crash site 3 years ago. And at the bottom, a photo she'd never seen. A blurred figure in the background. Ethan Pierce. Her breath caught. How did you get these? I didn't, he said. My security chief did. He thought I should know who's been snooping around my company under a fake name. Ava's hands shook. You knew. Since the day you walked in. The room spun. Her mind ran backward. Every late-night call. Every cryptic message. Every time he'd said her fake name with a hint of a smile. He'd known all along. He'd been watching her the same way she'd been watching him. Why let me stay? She asked. Ethan took a step closer. His voice dropped. Because I wanted to know how far you'd go for revenge. Silence. Her throat tightened. This was all a game to you? He shook his head slowly. No, it was a test. I wanted to see if you'd find the truth, or if you'd destroy yourself chasing it. Ava stared at him. You killed my husband, Ethan. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he whispered. No, I didn't. He turned to the window, his reflection fractured by the glass. I tried to stop it, but by the time I found out what he was mixed in, it was too late. Her breath trembled. You're lying. He turned sharply, eyes blazing. You think I wanted this? You think I sleep easy knowing what happened to him? He slammed a folder onto the table. He wasn't the man you thought he was, Ava. He was working with someone, inside my company, laundering money through my charities. Ava's world tilted. That's not true. Check the files, Ethan said. His signatures on every transfer. She opened the folder with shaking hands. Dates, amounts, offshore accounts. Her husband's name beside every one. Felt like betrayal all over again. But this time from the dead. Ethan's voice softened. You wanted the truth. There it is. The man who destroyed your life wasn't me. It was the one you were trying to avenge. She stepped back, tears burning behind her eyes. I don't believe you. You don't have to, he said quietly. But you came here for answers, and I just gave you one. The silence that followed felt endless. Two broken souls trapped in the same storm, both victims of the same lie. Finally, Ava whispered, Then why help me? Why not expose me? Ethan looked at her, really looked, and said, Because I know what it's like to lose everything. And because I owe you the truth, even if it kills me. He moved closer, voice low, raw. I didn't kill him, Ava. But I know who did. Her breath hitched. Who? He hesitated. Then he said a name she never expected. A name that made her knees weaken. Marcus Hale. her husband's best friend. The man who'd helped her through the funeral. The one who'd held her hand when she couldn't breathe. No, she whispered. Marcus loved him. Ethan nodded grimly. Loved the money more. He set up the crash to cover their tracks. I've been trying to prove it ever since. Ava's mind raced. Every memory of Marcus twisted into something dark. The missed calls, the half-truths, the comfort that came too easily. She felt sick, like the ground itself had turned against her. Then Ethan said something she didn't expect. You don't have to believe me, Ava. But if you want proof, meet me tonight. Pier 19. Midnight. She looked up. Why there? Because that's where it ends. He handed her a small drive. Don't open this until you're ready. She took it and left without another word. That night, she drove to Pier 19. Rain fell in sheets, waves crashing against the docks. Ethan was already there, standing beneath the streetlight. But before she could step out of the car, another figure appeared. Marcus. Her blood froze. Ethan turned, startled. Marcus raised a gun. Ava screamed. The shot echoed across the water. Ethan dropped to his knees. Ava ran toward him, heart pounding, but Marcus grabbed her arm. You shouldn't have come here, he hissed. You weren't supposed to know. She struggled, kicked, fought. He shoved her down, aimed again, but Ethan, bleeding, tackled him from behind. The gun fired once more, then silence. When Ava opened her eyes, Marcus was on the ground. Still, Ethan lay beside him, coughing, blood on his lips. She knelt, cradling his face. Stay with me, please. Don't leave me too. He smiled weakly. Told you, truth always has a price. Tears fell onto his shirt. Why would you do this? Because I was tired of being the villain. His hand brushed her cheek. Promise me you'll finish it. Then his eyes closed. The sound of sirens filled the distance. Ava sat there, holding him, as dawn broke over the water. The same water that had taken her husband had now taken the man who tried to save her. She looked at the flash drive in her hand, the last thing he'd given her. Maybe it held the proof. Maybe it held his confession. Maybe both. Either way, it held the truth. And the truth, at last, was hers to carry. They say revenge is a fire that keeps you warm until it burns you alive. For Ava Monroe, that fire had finally gone out. All that was left was smoke. Ethan Pierce was gone, and with him the last thread connecting her pain to purpose. The police called it self-defense. Marcus Hale had been armed. Ethan had saved her. But when the headlines hit the morning news, tech CEO dies in mysterious dock shooting, the world didn't see the hero. They saw the villain they always wanted him to be. Ava didn't go to the funeral. She watched from her car on the hill, far enough that no one could see the tears. He had no family there, just a few employees, a few questions, and silence. After everyone left, she walked down to the grave. The rain had stopped. The ground was still soft. She placed a small flash drive on the tombstone and whispered, "You said the truth always has a price. I'm ready to pay it." Then she picked it back up and walked away. That night, in her small apartment, Ava finally plugged the drive into her laptop. Her hands shook. The screen went black for a moment, then flickered to life. There was only one file, a video, titled, "For Ava." She pressed play. Ethan appeared on the screen, tired, unshaven, but still calm. He was sitting at his office desk, the same one where she'd once accused him of murder. "If you're watching this," he said, "then I guess I didn't make it." Ava covered her mouth, fighting back the sound that escaped her throat. Ethan continued, "I could have told you everything in person, but you wouldn't have believed me. Not then. Maybe not ever." He paused, eyes lowering. "So here it is. The truth." The screen cut to photos, documents, transaction logs, police reports. Ethan's voice overlapped. "Your husband didn't die because of me. He died because he tried to expose Marcus. He found out the money they were laundering came from human trafficking routes disguised as charity shipments. He wanted to confess, to go public. Marcus couldn't let him. Ava froze. Her husband? A whistleblower? Ethan's voice cracked slightly. I tried to protect him, Ava, but I was too late. Marcus arranged the crash, and when I found out, I buried the evidence to protect you. From them. From their partners. He looked directly into the camera. I knew you'd come for me one day. I saw the fire in your eyes the moment you walked into my company. I let you stay because I wanted to earn the right to tell you this myself. He took a breath. I don't need you to forgive me. I just need you to know. Not every monster started as one. The video glitched, flickered, then cut back to Ethan, quieter now. If this gets to you, it means you're still alive. So finish it, Ava. There's a hard drive in my safe at the office. Code, November 19th, 07. It has everything: names, accounts, routes. Enough to end what Marcus started. He smiled faintly, eyes wet. And if you ever wonder why I cared, it's because I saw in you what I lost in myself: hope. Don't let it die. The screen went black. Then a single line of text appeared. Truth survives the people who die for it. Ava sat there, staring at the dark screen. For the first time in years, she didn't cry. She just breathed, slowly, deeply, like someone finally resurfacing after drowning. The next day, she went back to Ethan's office. The company had shut down temporarily. The guards were gone. But she still had her old keycard, the one he'd given her months ago. Inside, everything was untouched. The chair, the whiskey glass, the faint scent of cedar. She found the safe behind a framed painting. Her fingers hesitated over the keypad, then typed. November 19th, 07. It opened. Inside, one hard drive and a letter. On the envelope, her name. Just her name. She opened it slowly. The handwriting was his. Ava, if you're reading this, it means you made it through the fire. What's on this drive will destroy powerful people. Men who build empires on other people's pain. But it will also destroy me, everything I've ever built. Use it, or burn it. The choice is yours. E. She took the drive and walked out into the morning sun. The city looked the same, but something inside her had changed. She didn't go to the police. She didn't go to the press. Not yet. Instead, she went to a small diner, the same one where her husband used to take her on Sundays. She ordered his usual coffee, black, 2 sugars. Then she opened her laptop. Her reflection stared back. Not the woman who'd been broken, but the woman who survived. She uploaded the drive. Every file. Every name. Every secret. Then she hit send to the FBI. To the press. To every outlet that ever wrote a lie about Ethan Pierce. And just like that, the empire that killed her husband began to crumble. By nightfall, the story broke. Ethan Pierce exonerated posthumously. Corporate crime ring exposed. Ava watched from her apartment window, city lights flickering below. Justice didn't feel like victory. Felt like peace. Quiet, fragile, earned. She whispered toward the stars. Rest now, Ethan. You were right. The truth always survives. Then, in the faint reflection on her window, she thought she saw him. A silhouette, calm, proud, fading with the dawn. And for the first time since the fire began, Ava smiled. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. It's about freeing what was worth saving. They called it revenge. But maybe it was redemption all along. If you were Ava Monroe, would you have exposed the truth? Or walked away from it? Tell me in the comments. And if you believe truth should never die in silence, share the story. Because somewhere out there, another Ava is still fighting.
Subscribe for more echoes.